All right, I have seen Superman twice now, actually. And before I get into my totally non-spoiler review, I think it's fair to say that there was a time on the internet where I was James Gunn's biggest champion. I certainly was making an incredible amount of content about his work that I have loved for my entire life. This project has been one of my most anticipated for a long time because of James Gunn. I've actually never really gotten into Superman comics, although I have weirdly seen every Superman movie ever made. So let's get into it. First off, I want to say before I get into my own thoughts, if you are excited about this movie, stay in line. Like, obviously the conversation around this movie is Superman going to save the superhero genre? And while that may be an unfair expectation to put on a single movie, it could genuinely happen. I think that this movie is going to be a huge crowd pleaser. I think people are going to have a great time with this. And if this is setting the tone for the summer, a Superman summer is going to be an absolute vibe. That said, my feelings on this movie are complicated. I did have a very mixed reaction to it, which I am not gonna lie, was disappointing because, as I said, I am a huge James Gunn fan, and I genuinely believed that this movie and the creative team behind it had the actual capacity to be definitive for the genre. And I don't think it quite is. That said, I think there's a lot to love here. First of all, the positives, because I want to overload you guys with the positives. There are many of them. So many individual elements of this movie are incredible. The greatest of which is definitely David Corenswet, who is without question the greatest Clark Kent / Superman we've ever gotten. Like, genuinely, this character is incredible. And all respect in the world to Christopher Reeves, who was an absolutely incredible Clark Kent and Superman. This iteration is truly something special. Rachel Brosnahan is a wonderful Lois Lane, and the chemistry that these two have is unbelievable. I would go so far as to say that pretty much everyone in this film is cast perfectly, and regardless of how much or little screen time they have, they all make a massive impact. The unfortunate and predictable downside of having a cast this expansive and this excellent, though, is that there simply isn't enough time to give everyone a meaningful impact on screen. And consequently, it feels like a lot of the story and character beats substitute real character development for cheap, emotionally manipulative shortcuts that are meant to elicit a reaction instead of earning one. Now, I have seen this movie twice already. I saw it once 2 weeks ago at a special screening, and I attended the premiere last night, and I did like it better the second time. I think I was able to sit back and enjoy it for what it was more, because the first time, the structural issues that I had with it were a lot more glaring, and I was stung a little bit by the disappointment of my initial reaction not being what I hoped. And listen, I know that there are going to be people who see this movie and then watch this review and tell me that I'm wrong, that I don't understand, that this movie feels like a comic book come to life, and if I'm not a comics fan, I wouldn't understand that. I am a comics fan, but that's not the point. I understand that this movie does feel like a comic book come to life. It's very zany and colorful, but it feels like a bad comic book come to life, or not a great one. It's just structurally quite messy. And there are, again, individual elements that I really enjoyed. The Justice Gang, the idea of a world where metahumans already exist, really fun, incredible stuff. I appreciate skipping over an origin story that people already know, and I think that there were a lot of creative choices made here that could have been done better, perhaps with a little bit more constraint. This movie to me really feels like a creative that got to make his dream project without any restrictions. And I am a firm believer, as a creative person myself, that creatives work best when they're given some limitations. And this film feels like a kid in a candy store that had absolutely no limitations. Fun, exciting, exhilarating, but it's a sugar high that wears off by the finale very quickly. And unfortunately, I think just as obvious as the excellent casting is that this movie doesn't look very good. I understand that the oversaturated and limited color palette is meant intentionally to be referential to comic books. I appreciate that, and I think that there is a way that it could have been done well. I just don't think that the end result ended up looking very good. I think that there is a lot of CGI usage in this film, especially for fight scenes, that I think make it look not great. But again, I don't think that that is going to be too distracting for a lot of people who are just having fun, because it is fun. The supporting characters are great, if a little underdeveloped. The Justice Gang, Guy Gardner and Hawkgirl and Mr. Terrific are all wonderful. Mr. Terrific in particular, he has the best fight scene in the movie, which is unfortunate in a Superman movie, but it is really fun. I don't think that it really matches the standard of Gunn's previous work with fight scenes in creative ways to shoot them, like his work in the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise, for example, I think is not really matched here. But, I think that there's a lot of room to grow. The The other thing that I kept taking issue with is that the way that the script is written, there are scenes like the aforementioned scene between Lois and Clark that is one of the best written, and honestly, it was shocking to me to see the incredible characterization of Clark Kent coming from James Gunn after he's written characters like Peacemaker and Star-Lord. I was like, wow, this guy understands characters. He can really get into their heads. It's amazing. But a lot of the other writing that isn't like these interpersonal dialogue moments feels so gratuitously explanatory and obvious. There are several times when characters will say things like, I did this for this reason, or, oh, this is how I'm feeling right now. And I'm just like, what? Like, I understand that it's meant to be a little camp, a little like silly comic booky, but it really took me out of it a little bit. And that is definitely subjective. There are going to be people that I think will find that endearing, but for me, it just didn't. I think it was the inconsistency of seeing these grounded characters have these real interpersonal relationships, like juxtaposed with characters that are saying incredibly surface level exposition. I just ultimately feel like James Gunn's films always are intensely personal. Like, they're these big, grandiose stories about superheroes a lot of the time, but they feel like their characters have this distinct vulnerability. They're incredibly emotional and character driven. And that isn't to say that this one isn't. Like, David Cornsweet is absolutely incredible in this role. Every character elicits empathy and makes you like them, honestly. Even Nicholas Holt's Lex Luthor, who he is diabolically like wonderful in this film. But again, a character that I feel is a little bit underserved just because we jump right into the conflict and we're already given this motivation for why he hates Superman. I would have liked to see a little bit of development instead of a static, if excellent, villain. But the issue to me is just that there are so many of these forced emotional moments between characters that we barely know. There are so many of these big moments in the film that the emotional weight of the film is supposed to rest on that are resting on characters that are either unnamed literally or we don't know at all. And I think like I would have liked more to see his relationship with Lois more thoroughly investigated. I would have loved to see his connection to humanity investigated through more of a interpersonal lens like that, as opposed to he's this excellent guy who just loves humans for being humans. And this is coming from someone who cries every time there's like humans coming together, like humans helping each other. I love that. I just wish that it had felt a little bit more earned through real character development on screen. I also think that the climax of this movie is like a little bit laughable. I genuinely wasn't a big fan of it. But again, you have so much fun while you're watching it. I think that this is going to be a hit. I think people are going to love it. I genuinely want to see so much more of these characters because I don't think that we have ever seen a Lois and Clark like this. Jimmy Olsen is wonderful. I need to see more Mr. Terrific. Absolutely. This world is just fascinating. I can't wait to see more. I really hope that what we get in the future is a little bit more streamlined and a little bit more refined, but I can't help but still be excited about this. Like, it's still an undeniably beautiful step in the right direction. Like, it's a superhero film filled with hope that might be a little bit naive and a little bit all over the place at times, but it has a hell of a heart and it is endearing as hell. So yeah, I mean, I'm going to watch it again, probably. It's a good time. It's going to be a good summer, Superman summer.